Most men are focused on what to do to make a woman fall in love. They study the right words to say. They Google the perfect gifts to buy. They overthink the dinner, the texts, the timing, hoping that if they do everything right, she'll choose them. But here's the truth most men miss. A woman doesn't fall in love with what you say. She doesn't fall in love with the gifts, the compliments, or even the effort. She falls in love with how she feels when she's around you. The tone in your voice when you speak softly. The peace she feels when she sits beside you. The safety she senses, not in your words, but in your presence. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It happens in the quiet moments, when she's tired and you stay patient, when she's unsure and you don't pressure her, when she's distant and you don't chase, you hold space. Over time, something shifts. Not because you impressed her, but because you became someone she could trust, someone she didn't have to perform for, someone whose energy made her feel safe to be fully herself. And that's when love begins. So no, it's not about doing more. It's about being more grounded, more aware, more whole. Let me show you how it really happens. She falls when she feels understood without explaining herself. You want to know when it really starts? It's not when you compliment her beauty, not when you take her to a fancy restaurant, not even when you text her good morning every day. It starts in the quiet moments, when she says something small, something most people would miss, and you catch it. You remember it. You ask her about it later, not because you're trying to impress her, but because you actually care. It starts when she's quiet, and you don't panic. You don't pressure her to talk. You don't fill the silence with noise. You simply sit with her in that stillness, letting her know you don't have to explain yourself to be heard here. It starts when she gets emotional, maybe even irrational. And instead of fixing, correcting, or criticizing, you stay steady. You don't try to make her feel better just to make yourself comfortable. You let her feel, and that alone tells her she's safe. Because most people listen to reply, but she's never had someone listen to understand. And when she finally feels that rare moment when she doesn't have to perform, doesn't have to explain, doesn't have to filter her words or shrink her feelings, that's when her guard starts to drop. That's when her heart starts to open. Not because you told her the right thing, but because she felt seen in the silence. And that feeling, that's where real love begins. She falls when you're calm in her chaos. Every woman, no matter how strong, independent, or confident, goes through storms. There are days when her emotions take over, when fear creeps in, when her insecurities speak louder than her logic, when she feels overwhelmed, anxious, or just off. And in those moments, she's not looking for a man to fix her. She's not waiting for someone to come and rescue her. She's not asking for solutions. She's watching. She's observing. How do you respond to her chaos? Do you try to shut it down? Do you get frustrated and say she's too much? Do you back away because you don't know how to handle it? Or do you stay calm? Do you hold steady while she falls apart? Do you let her feel without trying to change her? Do you breathe through the storm without trying to outrun it? Because here's what most men don't realize. A woman doesn't fall for the man who controls the chaos. She falls for the man who doesn't get shaken by it. Your calm in her storm tells her, you don't scare me. I see you. I'm not running. That silence, that stillness, that patience, it creates something rare, emotional safety. And for a woman who's had to hide her emotions, shrink her reactions, or bottle up her feelings for the sake of others, feeling emotionally safe is more intimate than a kiss, more powerful than any compliment, more attractive than 1,000 rehearsed lines. When she sees that you don't flinch when her world feels heavy, she starts to trust you with parts of herself she never shares. And that trust? That's the first real spark of love. She falls for a man who respects his own peace. You want to know what really draws a woman in. It's not your looks, it's not your money, it's not how often you compliment her or how quickly you reply. Those things might get her attention for a moment, but they won't hold it. What holds it, what pulls her in without effort, is your energy, your presence, your stillness, your peace. Not the peace that looks calm on the outside while you're anxious on the inside. Not fake confidence or rehearsed charm, but real, grounded peace. The kind that comes from a man who knows who he is and doesn't need anyone else to confirm it. Because here's the truth, most men are exhausted. They try so hard to be liked. They give everything just to feel seen. They chase people who don't see them. They trade their peace for a little attention. And they end up confused, tired, and burned out, wondering why nothing sticks. But the man who respects his own peace, he moves differently. He knows his attention is valuable, so he doesn't give it away to anyone who hasn't earned it. He doesn't text back instantly to prove his worth. He doesn't explain himself over and over just to feel accepted. He doesn't rearrange his entire life just to stay on someone's mind. Not because he's playing games, but because he's centered. He has boundaries, not walls, but lines that say, my energy matters, my time matters, my focus matters. And that difference, it's magnetic, because women can feel it. They feel it when you're not emotionally frantic. They feel it when you answer with calm, not panic. They feel it when your world doesn't shake just because they didn't respond fast enough. You're not desperate for a reaction. You're not attached to how she feels every second. You're anchored in yourself. And that makes her curious, because she's met guys who needed her, guys who clung to her, guys who collapsed when she didn't give them what they were looking for. But you're not looking for rescue. You've already rescued yourself. You're not waiting for a relationship to start living. You're already living fully. You're not trying to be impressive. You're simply being present. And that's more powerful than performance ever could be. You protect your peace, not because you're cold, but because you've worked too hard to find it. And the woman who truly sees you, she doesn't feel pushed away. She feels invited in, because your stillness makes her feel safe. Your discipline makes her respect you. Your emotional control makes her trust you. She starts to wonder what it would feel like to be close to a man who doesn't need her to complete him, but chooses her from fullness, not from emptiness. She doesn't feel chased, she feels drawn. And not because you're trying, but because your presence speaks louder than your words. When you respect yourself that deeply, you become the man she doesn't want to lose, because you're not offering her a performance. You're offering her peace. And peace, real peace, is rare. Most men want love because they feel empty without it. But when you build your life from wholeness, when you walk in purpose, when you wake up knowing who you are, whether someone chooses you or not, you stop chasing love, you attract it. Not because you're trying harder, but because you've become the kind of man who doesn't beg to be chosen. He chooses himself first, and that's the kind of man who gets chosen in return. She falls when she's not performing around you. Most people know how to love when it's easy, when things feel good, when she's glowing, when her laughter fills the room, when the energy is light and effortless. But that's not where real love lives. That's just where love visits. The truth is, anyone can stay when it's beautiful. Anyone can smile back when she's laughing. Anyone can love her when she's shining. But the moment she starts to dim, that's when the truth shows up. Real love doesn't wait for her to be okay. It meets her where she is, even if where she is messy, exhausted, silent, irritable, tired of being on. She falls when you don't make her feel like a burden for being human, when you don't shrink away the second she's not in a good mood, when you don't take her sadness personally, When you don't say, "What's wrong now?" with frustration in your tone. She falls when your tone stays soft, even when her voice doesn't. When you stay close, even when she starts pulling back. When you give her space without walking away. She watches everything. She notices when you still hold her hand, even when she's quiet. When you don't need her to fake a smile just to keep the peace. When you don't punish her emotionally for having a hard day. When you don't ask her to perform just so you feel okay. And in those moments, when her energy is off, when she's unsure of herself, when her confidence disappears into the background of her fatigue, she feels your presence in a way she doesn't when things are easy. Because something rare starts to happen. She realizes, you're not just here for the bright, polished, picture-perfect version of her. You're not just loving the Instagram version of her life. You're holding space for all of her, the unfiltered, the emotional, the quiet, the soft, the loud, the sensitive, the raw. And that's rare. That's healing. That's unforgettable. Because most of her life, she's had to perform. Be polite, be pretty, be light-hearted, even when her heart felt heavy. Smile for others, even when she was breaking inside. She's been taught that love is something you earn by being easy to love, that she has to be less so someone else can stay. But then you show up, and you don't ask her to be less. You don't ask her to hide. You don't ask her to keep performing. And in that quiet, safe space, she starts to rest. For the first time, maybe in a long time, she doesn't feel like she has to keep it together. She can be moody. She can be unsure. She can be imperfect. And still be held. With kindness, not control. And when that happens, she falls. Not for your looks. Not for your charm. Not for what you say when everything's smooth. She falls for how you love her in the chaos, how you hold her when she's unraveling, how you don't run away just because she's not fun in that moment. You don't flinch when she breaks down. You don't judge. You don't leave the room to escape the emotion. You stay. You breathe. You listen. You let her feel. And in doing that, you give her something more powerful than any words ever could. You give her the message, you don't have to be perfect for me to stay. And once a woman feels that, truly feels it in her bones, something inside her shifts. Because love isn't just a feeling, it's safety, it's presence, it's the deep knowing that she doesn't have to earn your warmth. She already has it. You become more than just a partner, you become her home. Because anyone can love a woman when she's easy to love. But the man who sees her when she's not performing, when she's tired, messy, and uncertain, and loves her anyway, that's the man she never forgets. Because he didn't fall for the version she shows the world. He loved her in her shadows. And in return, she gives him something no performance can ever offer. Real trust, real softness, real love. And that kind of love, it doesn't fade, it doesn't wear off. It deepens, because it was never built on perfection. It was built on truth. And truth is the foundation of love that lasts. She falls when you lead with quiet confidence. You don't have to control her. You don't have to raise your voice, assert dominance, or keep proving that you're the man. You don't need to micromanage her emotions or make every decision to show you're in charge. Real leadership, the kind that earns trust and inspires love, isn't loud. It doesn't walk into the room needing to be noticed. It walks in already knowing who it is. And that's what makes it powerful. Real leadership is quiet, not because it's weak, but because it's rooted in clarity. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't chase control. It stands still while everything else spins and says with its presence, "I've got this." You don't lead her by overpowering her. You don't lead her by putting her in her place. You lead her by becoming the kind of man she can trust without fear. The kind of man whose energy says, I don't need to prove I'm in control. I am in control of myself, of my actions, of my life. You don't make decisions out of panic. You don't fold when pressure comes. You don't wait for her to tell you who to be or what to do. You already have a direction. You already walk with purpose. And she sees that. She sees it in how you handle things when life goes sideways, when plans fall apart, when emotions get messy. She watches how you move when things are uncertain. She watches how you speak, not just what you say, but the tone behind your words. And she feels it in her body when you're calm. Not fake calm, but real inner stillness. Not control disguised as care, but grounded, centered strength that doesn't need a spotlight. That's when something inside her begins to release. Because here's what most men don't realize. A woman doesn't want to be controlled. She doesn't want to be dominated. She doesn't want a man who needs to constantly remind her he's in charge. What she wants is safety. She wants to be able to breathe around you, to stop leading everything, to stop carrying all the weight, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. She wants to relax without worrying that the whole relationship will fall apart. She wants to know that when life gets heavy, you're not going to disappear, lose your temper, or crumble under the pressure. You're going to hold steady. She doesn't need you to fix everything. She doesn't need you to solve her problems. She just needs to know, if I fall for him, will he catch me with strength or crush me with control? And when your presence answers that without words, when your daily actions say, I've got this, without needing applause, validation, or constant recognition, that's when she softens. Not because she's weak, not because she needs saving, but because for the first time, she doesn't have to do everything herself. She's spent so long being the strong one, being independent, being the emotional anchor in every relationship. And now, she meets you. And your quiet confidence becomes her anchor. Your stability becomes her safe place. Your leadership, calm, non-controlling, grounded, becomes the reason she starts letting go of her armor. And in that space, that quiet, beautiful space where she doesn't feel like she has to lead, love grows. It grows from trust. It grows from presence. It grows from the soft power of a man who doesn't force her to follow, but makes her want to, because in a world full of noise, full of men trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to be alpha, the man who leads with humility, with inner strength, with unshakable calm, that man, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he demanded loyalty, but because his energy created peace. And peace, to a woman who's had to carry everything alone for too long, isn't just attractive, it's irresistible. She falls when you stop forcing it. You want to know one of the fastest ways to make her shut down? Force it. Force the connection. Force vulnerability. Force closeness before trust has even had a chance to breathe. A lot of men don't realize they're doing it. They think they're just being open, getting deep, building a bond. But what they're really doing is skipping the part where safety gets built. They want her walls to fall before she even feels safe behind them. So they rush. They push for emotionally charged conversations too early. They bring up past trauma like it's a shortcut to intimacy. They ask deep personal questions, not out of care, but out of urgency, out of fear, out of the desire to speed up what can only happen slowly. But love isn't a checklist. It's not something you hack with clever lines or emotional tricks. It's not a formula you solve. Real connection doesn't respond to pressure. It doesn't bloom because you want it fast. It blooms when it feels safe, when it feels seen, when it feels free. She doesn't want to feel like she's being pulled into something before she's ready. She doesn't want to feel like she owes you trust because you opened up first. She doesn't want to be impressed. She wants to feel understood. She's watching to see if you can sit in the moment with her without trying to steer it. She's watching how you respond to her quiet days, her pauses, her resistance to open the door too fast. And when she sees that you don't panic in the silence, that you're not scrambling to fill every space with a deep question or romantic line, that's when she starts to soften. Because pressure makes her guard go up. But presence makes her feel safe. She wants to see if you can sit beside her without needing her to be more talkative, more open, more into you. She wants to feel like she has time to unfold, time to breathe, time to choose you freely, not because you talked her into it, but because your energy made it easy to feel close to you. And that only happens when you stop chasing the moment and let it arrive on its own, when you stop treating silence as a threat and start treating it as sacred, when you stop thinking, what do I say next? And start thinking, can I just be here without needing anything right now? Because love doesn't look like fireworks all the time. Real love builds like a slow fire. It starts as a flicker, maybe so small you barely notice it, but it's warm and steady and quiet. And if you respect it, if you tend to it without rushing it, that small fire becomes something sacred, something she trusts, something she doesn't want to lose. So stop trying to make her fall. Don't rush the moment. Don't push for emotional closeness like it's a goal. Don't turn vulnerability into a race. Just be there, fully, patiently, gently. Let her feel your presence, not your pressure. Let her see your calm, not your desperation. Let her experience your steadiness, not your strategy. Because when you do that, you give her something rare. You give her the freedom to fall without being forced. And when a woman feels free around you, when she knows she can open up in her own time, that she can come closer without being dragged, that's when she wants to open. That's when she chooses you. Not because you pushed, not because you convinced her, but because she finally felt something she rarely feels with anyone else. Safe, free, and seen. That's not performance. That's not manipulation. That's not game playing. That's presence. And presence is what turns interest into connection, and connection into love. So be the man who stops forcing it. Be the man who leaves room for real love to arrive. And in that quiet space, that sacred patience, that grounded calm, that's where she begins to fall. Not fast, not loud, but real. And real is what lasts. She falls for the man who chooses himself first. Here's the twist most men never see coming. The more you try to be chosen, the more you're overlooked. But the moment you stop needing approval, the moment you start choosing yourself, everything changes. You see, most men think love is earned through effort alone, that if they show up enough, text enough, care enough, sacrifice enough, eventually, she'll choose them. But that's the trap. Because when your self-worth depends on being picked, you lose the power that makes you magnetic in the first place. The power of presence without need. The man she falls for isn't begging to be seen. He's already seen himself. He's not chasing connection to feel complete. He's building a life that fulfills him, with or without applause. You're not texting her out of boredom or emptiness. You're not needing her to validate your identity. You're not checking your phone every hour to see if she notices you. You've already noticed yourself. You wake up with a purpose that has nothing to do with whether she replies. You're building something, a vision, a discipline, a legacy. And because of that, your life has momentum. That energy? It's rare, because most men are stuck in waiting to be seen, waiting to be wanted, waiting for the green light to begin living fully. But you're already moving. You've chosen yourself, not with arrogance, but with intention, not to prove anything, but because you finally realized you are not a half waiting for a whole. You are whole already. And that kind of man doesn't come around often. He's not cold, he's calm, he's not detached, he's directed, he's not unavailable, he's just not available to anything that takes him out of alignment with his peace. You've stopped performing. You've stopped over-explaining. You've stopped trying to earn love with sacrifice. You've shifted from asking, "Am I enough for her?" to declaring, "I'm already enough for the life I'm building." And when a woman sees that, when she feels that your happiness doesn't hinge on her attention, that you're not waiting for her to complete you, she doesn't feel pressure, she feels freedom, because you're not asking her to save you. You're not looking to be completed. You're offering something far more powerful, a man who's already rooted, already rising, already alive in his own mission. And that kind of man, he's not an option. He becomes the standard. She no longer sees you as the guy hoping to be enough. She sees you as the man she doesn't want to miss. Not because you said the right words, not because you followed the perfect plan, but because your life is already in motion. You've stopped chasing women and started becoming the kind of man who draws them in effortlessly. Because here's the truth. A woman doesn't want to be your reason to grow. She wants to witness your growth and walk beside it. She wants to be inspired by your direction, not burdened by your lack of it. She wants to add to your fire, not be the only flame keeping your world lit. When you're already whole, she doesn't feel the weight of having to fix you, hold you up, or fill your gaps. She feels the freedom to love you from a place of choice, not obligation, not pity, not pressure. And that's the kind of love that lasts, because it's rooted in respect. It's built on mutual alignment, not imbalance. You're not standing still, waiting to be seen. You're walking forward, with or without anyone's permission. And in doing so, you stop being just another man. You become a destination, and that's when she leans in. That's when she stops wondering, is he the one? And starts asking herself, how do I fit into the world he's already building? That's when attraction turns to attachment, not because you tried harder, but because you became a man too aligned to ignore. And the man who chooses himself first, he becomes the man she never wants to lose. So if you're still wondering how women truly fall in love, let's take away the noise. Let's strip back the advice, the games, the strategies. Let me tell you something real. It's not about the flowers. It's not about the dates. It's not about the perfect playlist, the late-night texts, or the carefully chosen words. She doesn't fall because you memorized a script. She doesn't fall because you checked all the boxes. She falls because of how you make her feel, not through effort, but through energy. She falls for your calm when things go wrong. She falls for the way you hold space when she's quiet. She falls for the strength in you that doesn't need to dominate, because it's rooted in stillness. You sit beside her in silence, and she somehow feels seen. You walk beside her in chaos, and she somehow feels safe. You don't reach for her to complete you, because you already completed yourself. And that's what she notices. That's what she remembers. That's what she trusts. Because in a world full of noise, full of people trying to be impressive, she falls for the man who doesn't try to perform love. He just embodies it. She doesn't fall for the guy who needs her to feel whole. She falls for the man who's already living with purpose, already grounded in his own peace, already walking his own path. And when she sees that, she lets go. She stops guarding. She stops pretending. She stops managing your perception of her. Because for the first time, she feels like she can just be, without pressure, without perfection, without performing. And that right there is what creates love that lasts. So stop trying to be the guy who gets the girl. Stop approaching love like a task to be completed, a challenge to be won, a problem to be solved. Start becoming the man who makes no one responsible for his worth. Start becoming the man who wakes up for his mission, moves for his peace, and speaks from his truth, even if no one's listening. Because that man, he doesn't attract women by chasing them. He attracts them by becoming something they didn't know they needed. That man becomes undeniable, And when love shows up for him, it's not rushed, it's not forced, it doesn't feel like begging to be chosen. It feels like alignment, like a meeting of two people who were already full and simply recognized each other on the journey. So if this hit home, if you felt it somewhere deeper than just words, drop a comment below. Real love is quiet. Let me know who stayed all the way through. Because if you're still here, you're not just listening to another video, you're being called into something more. You're being called into wholeness, into purpose, into becoming the kind of man who doesn't just attract love, but knows how to hold it when it arrives. You're not here to chase what's not meant for you. You're here to build yourself into someone unshakable. And remember this, every time you doubt, every time you feel behind, you don't attract her by trying harder. You attract her by becoming more whole. And wholeness? That's the kind of love story no one sees coming, but once it arrives, it never leaves.